Alrighty, so rather than doing these preview of these Sunday's game right after when the Atlanta United versus Columbus Crew game is over, as I originally was planned to do, I decided that I'm going to do the preview of this Sunday's game right now, right after when I've just finished my Friday night shift. And what I'm also going to do in terms of the upload is that I am going to upload right after when I finish recording this video, but I am not going to make this video public until tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time and noon Eastern. And the reason why I decided to do that is because, if I do decide to upload this video and not schedule it till tomorrow, then I'm pretty sure no one is gonna watch it. Like, this video is probably gonna be uploaded around midnight my time and 3 a.m. Eastern time, and I'm pretty sure no one wants to wait till that to watch a video of me doing the preview of these 5 Sunday games. And it's also more convenient the fact that tomorrow people can of course watch that video, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna get much more views compared to me have to upload this video right after when I basically press the upload button. So again, I'm gonna be scheduling this upload to be displayed on my channel tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time and noon Eastern. Now, the other thing that I also want to say in terms of these 5 games is that all 5 of these games not only is not going to be on national television, which I believe this is the first time we have that many games that is happening on Sunday, but it's not on national television, and I think part of that has to do with the Gold Cup knockout round is happening this weekend, and FS1 is basically covering those one. But the U.S., of course, they're going to be playing Jamaica in their knockout round, and it's actually going to be taking place right between when the final game of the Sunday action between Seattle and SKC is going to happen, and that it's kind of unfortunate that of course is the case. But I am not going to blame MLS for doing this, because I don't think MLS realized that the U.S. was going to be playing a knockout round on Sunday. And in some way, I think they're kind of thankful the fact that the U.S. are playing a knockout round on Sunday compared to doing it on Saturday, because imagine if it does happen on Saturday and how I talked about the Saturday action. There's tons of games that's going to be happening in the prime time slot. Well, if you even put the U.S. playing there, that's going to be a bit of a nightmare, and that a lot of fans of their team is going to have that problem where they're going to have to watch the U.S. play at the same time and also watch their team at the same time. And although as a person that have been no stranger in terms of keeping an eye on 2, 3, or even 4 games at a time, I'm pretty sure that's not something a lot of people like to do, where they have to keep track of games that is happening at the same time. So yeah, it could have been worse, but it's just kind of unfortunate the fact that the U.S. versus Jamaica game is going to be taking place right between what I think is probably the game of the week between the Seattle Sounders versus SKC. But before we talk about that game, which actually that's the last game we're going to talk about in this preview, let's talk about the first game, which is New England versus Montreal. And this game will be kicking off or it will start at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, but the actual kickoff will not start until 6:08 p.m. local time. New England, of course, they are coming in this game on a high note after winning 5-0 against Inter Miami away, while Montreal, it's kind of the opposite. They unfortunately lost their midweek game against NYCFC away, as they lost 1-0 in that one. The record of both teams for New England, 9-3-3, and still at the top of the Eastern Conference, while Montreal has a record of 6-4-4, and I think they have now dropped down to 5th place in the Eastern Conference. Now, in terms of the last 5 games for both of these teams, well, New England, they kind of were going through a bit of a rough patch last week, but they started to get back to their form of explaining why exactly they're at the top of the Eastern Conference. After, as I mentioned, they absolutely annihilated Inter Miami in that midweek game by winning 5-0 in that one. Then they did win 1-0 on the road against Atlanta United. But before that, this was kind of the rough patch that they were going through, where they lost 3-2 to Toronto FC at home, drew 2-2 to Columbus, and then lost 2-1 on the road against FC Dallas. While for Montreal, they kind of are in a relatively good form until the last game, where they unfortunately suffered a 1-0 loss against NYCFC. But before that, they actually had 3 straight victories. First winning in that incredible game against FC Cincinnati, where they were able to win 5-4 in that one. Then winning 2-1 against NYCFC, winning 1-0 at home against Inter Miami before drawing 1-1 against Nashville SC. And yeah, this is a game between two teams that definitely are in good form, and that, I think New England definitely are going to be a team that could be the favorites coming into this one, because, besides that loss that they suffer against TFC at home, that's the only loss that they suffer so far this season at home, and their home form has been incredible this year. But, for Montreal this year, they have definitely been one of, if not the biggest surprise of the season, and don't be surprised if they can potentially cause some trouble against New England in this game, and really could put up a fight against the best team in the Eastern Conference. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be NYCFC versus Orlando City. So this game will also start at the same time as New England versus Montreal game, going to take place at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and it will also kick off at the same time as the last game I talked about at 6:08 p.m. local time. NYCFC, of course, won 1-0 against Montreal at home to improve their record to 6-2-5, and also able to stay above the red line as of now, because they're actually the last team that is above the red line in 7th place of the Eastern Conference. While for Orlando City, they were able to keep pace on New England at the top spot of the Eastern Conference by winning 2-1 against the Union at home. In terms of the last 5 games for NYCFC, well, it's been a very kind of mixed bag in terms of how NYCFC have looked in their last 5 games. As I mentioned, they won 1-0 against Montreal, but then they lost 2-1 on the road against Columbus, lost 1-0, or actually that is actually wrong. It actually should be 2-1. That is the score line that they lost to Montreal. But before that, they did win 1-0 against Atlanta United, and then they lost 3-2 against New England. So again, they're very inconsistent in the last couple of games, and whenever I see a team that is inconsistent, it also kind of frustrates me of thinking, well, what kind of team are we going to get? Are we going to get that NYCFC team that is able to get the 3 points, or are we going to see the NYCFC team that is probably not going to be up for it, and they're going to drop points? And I think that's also kind of a thing that NYCFC fans are feeling too, where they have no idea what kind of a team that they're going to get, and sometimes that could also be a very frustrating thing if you are a fan of a team that has just been so inconsistent, and that you really hope that they go in a good run, but then because of the fact that they've been winning games and then losing game and then winning game again in this kind of win-loss kind of pattern, yeah, it can definitely be very frustrating at times. Now, for Orlando City, well, they, of course, did win 2-1 against the Philadelphia Union, but before that, they did drew 1-1 against TFC. Then they had their rough patch where they lost back-to-back games for the first time this season by losing 3-1 on the road against Chicago, and then losing 2-1 at home against the Red Bulls, which is the only loss that they suffer so far this season at home. And then, of course, they were able to win 2-1 against Inter Miami in that Florida derby. But nevertheless, coming into this game, again, I don't know what kind of version NYCFC is going to be. If it's the good version of NYCFC, then I think they have a chance against Orlando City, because Orlando hasn't really looked that well in the last couple of games. Yes, they did win their last game against the Union, but I did mention back in that review yesterday that I thought that they really stole that game, and that the Union were pretty much very unlucky to not get at least a point out of that one. But if we're going to get the bad version of NYCFC, then I'm pretty sure Orlando City has a good chance to get all 3 points in this game. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be Inter Miami versus the Philadelphia Union. So this is a matchup between two teams that is definitely struggling. And, you notice how I said two team and not just Inter Miami, because I know everybody know that Inter Miami is in a complete free fall right now. I mean, they have lost 6 in a row coming into this game, which is the longest losing streak that right now in MLS, and are currently dead last in the MLS standing. But a lot of people don't realize the Union are also going through a relatively rough patch, as after they lose 2-1 against Orlando City on the road in that midweek game, they have now only won 1 game out of their last 5 games, and their record is now at 6-5-4, and they're slowly starting to drop back down the Eastern table, which is something I don't think Union fans were expecting with the way that they were just red hot just a couple of weeks ago. Now, this game will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff will not start until 7:30, 8 p.m. local time. In terms of the last 5 games, well, for Miami, as I mentioned, when you lose 6 games in a row, pretty much everything is going to be at the red in terms of your last 5 games. As the last game, I don't want to say that game against New England was the rock bottom moment, because I'm pretty sure they've been having tons of rock bottom moment that this team has gone through. But that really was a moment where I really thought that was it for Phil Neville. Like, I'm not going to lie, I was kind of expecting to hear Inter Miami potentially announce that they are going to fire Phil Neville, because we've seen before when you are on a bad run of form, especially the one that Inter Miami has had, and especially after just such a lopsided that loss, and it just also kind of feels like these players for Inter Miami is clearly not playing for Phil Neville. You expect the fact that Miami is going to do something in that front office is going to put Phil Neville on the chopping block, but he's still at this job as we speak. And before that, they lost 1-0 against Montreal, lose 2-1 on the road, at home against Orlando City in the Florida Derby. They'll be playing Orlando City on the road, not far from now. But before that, they of course lost 1-0 to DC United, and then lose to DC United again, this time at home by a final score of 3-0. For the Philadelphia Union, they of course lost 2-1 against Orlando City. They did win 2-1 against DC United, but as I mentioned, that is the only win that they have had in the last 5 games, because they then drew 1-1 against the Red Bulls, lost 1-0 on the road against Nashville SC, and then draw 3-3 against the Chicago Fire on the road. So yeah, this is a game where whenever you have a game where both teams are struggling in terms of their recent form, they're definitely desperate to try to get all 3 points. But if I have to kind of answer who exactly is the team that needs 3 points the most coming out of this one, it's got to be Inter Miami. Like, it's pretty clear that Inter Miami isn't in a desperate stage where if they don't pick up points and that they continue to go on this free fall that they're going through. I talk about the same case with FC Dallas earlier today, where they're also in that territory where it's pretty much almost see you next season kind of mode, and that the season is already going to be a loss. And Miami is definitely in that situation. In fact, I think they're definitely in that situation even closer than what FC Dallas is, because they are just so far away from a playoff, so far away from even getting themselves back into playoff contention. And unless if they can just remarkably turn around this free fall that they have, it's really getting to that territory where it's pretty much see you next season, and that they probably need to implode their entire squad heading into this off season. But despite that, that doesn't mean that the Philadelphia Union could just say that they can just take a point out of this game. They're definitely looking to try to get all 3 points, and especially this was one of the teams that they of course lost this year, and that if there is good news for Inter Miami, at least this is one of the teams that they of course were able to win. But again, the Union definitely wants some revenge after them losing earlier this season, and them also are in a stage where they're looking to try to get themselves back on track, as they have gone the wrong direction right now in the Eastern Conference after they were just in such a good run of form just a couple of weeks ago. But now moving on, in terms of the next match, is going to be the Atlantic Cup between DC United versus the New York Red Bulls. So this game will start at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, but the actual kickoff time will be 8:08 p.m. local time. And if it wasn't for this game between the Sounders versus SKC, where I thought that game is definitely the game of the week, this will definitely be taking the cake too, because anytime when there is an Atlantic Cup between DC and the Red Bulls, that this is gonna be a game that a lot of people would keep an eye on. And again, usually when this fixture does take place, this one is on national television. But of course, as I mentioned earlier in this preview, none of these games are on national television because Fox are basically covering those games in the Gold Cup, and also ESPN have already covered the game between Atlanta versus Columbus on Saturday, and it's very rare that they basically cover both Saturday and Sunday game that's taking place in the same match week. Which also, by the way, that game is now going to be taking place at ABC. I said earlier that game was at ESPN, but it was actually going to be taking place at ABC. But still, it's kind of the same network. It's just that that game is going to be now on local television, and if you don't have ESPN, you don't have to worry because that game is going to be on your local television. Now, going back to this one, where I talk about this one is not on national television. Well, coming into this Atlantic Cup, there's also a lot of things that is at stake with the way that both of these teams are actually right there in terms of contending for the playoff spot. In fact, DC United, I think as we speak, are currently in ninth in the Eastern Conference, and they of course were able to rescue themselves a 2-2 draw against the Chicago Fire in their midweek game. While the Red Bulls, they are unbeaten in the last 4 games, but it's been a while since the Red Bulls have been playing a game because they had that weather delay against Inter Miami last week, and unfortunately that game turns out to be postponed to another date because of the severe weather. So it's been a while since the Red Bulls have been in action, and we'll see with them having a lot of time off, whether that is going to be an advantage. I mean, I always thought that teams usually, when they get a break coming into a match week against a team that maybe are coming on in a short week, the team that usually gets the longer break does have the advantage. But at the same time, it's been so long since the Red Bulls have been playing. Sometimes that long break can also do more harm than good with the way that you haven't been playing competitively for a long time, and you're looking to try to get yourself back up to match fitness and also play a game against your rival in this one. Now, in the last 5 games between both of these teams, for DC United, it was a 2-2 draw between them and the Chicago Fire, as I mentioned. But then they did lose 2-1 to DC United. They did win, or 2-1 against the Philadelphia Union, not DC United, because I don't know why I said that. But before that, they, of course, won 7-1 against TFC at home, before losing 2-1 to NYCFC and then drawing 0-0 against Montreal. And for DC, they were in a relatively good run of form back in June, but there's no doubt they have started to taper off a little bit, and a lot of the reason why they kind of have been taper off is the inability to able to put the ball in the back of the net. And I know that 7 goal is something that you probably might be thinking, well, how are you saying that they can't put the ball into the back of the net and struggle to score when they score 7 goals against TFC? Yeah, that was the outlier. All the other game were a case where, once again, DC United, the biggest weakness that this team has this season is that they always tends to be very wasteful in front of goal and unable to find that clinical player that is able to score the goals for them. But for the Red Bulls coming into this game, in terms of their last 5 games, as I mentioned, it's been a while since they played, but the last time they played, it was a 1-1 draw between them and TFC. Then it was a 1-1 draw against the Union at home before winning 2-1 on the road against Orlando City, then drawing 0-0 against Atlanta United, and then losing 3-2 against New England. So they are also have only won once out of their last 5 games, but unlike DC United, they also have had a draw that was part of the 4-game unbeaten run that they have. But yeah, this should be a very fascinating kind of matchup, and it could also be a matchup that the winner of this game could potentially get themselves above the red line, because I believe DC, as I mentioned, they're in 9th place in the Eastern Conference. They're 3 points below the red line, while for the Red Bulls, they are in 8th place and 2 points below the red line. And depending on if NYCFC does not get the victory against Orlando City, there could be a chance that one of these teams can leapfrog NYCFC and get themselves above the red line in that 7th position. But now moving on into the last game on this board, and really the last game of match week number 14 is the game, as I mentioned before, is the game of the week between the Seattle Sounders versus SKC. And I talked about all these games on Sunday is not on national television. Well, if there is a game that I feel like it was criminal, the fact that this is not on national television, is this one. Like, this is a battle between the top 2 team in the Western Conference, albeit coming into this one, I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I was very looking forward to this this matchup, and I was looking forward to see who exactly could stop the juggernaut that is the Seattle Sounders, and I thought maybe SKC might be the team to do so. And then when I also look at this matchup, you just realize that the Sounders are a team that is still banged up because of injuries, and also a lot of their players are still currently with their respective national team in the Gold Cup, and that's the same case for SKC too. They also have players that is on international duty, and basically are missing in this team because of that. So this matchup kind of does deflate a little bit of the value, where you're going to see the strongest team between both of these teams going head to head. But nevertheless, it is still a very marquee matchup, and that, you know, I don't think I don't think SKC, even if they win this game, they can leapfrog the Sounders, because I believe the Sounders were able to now build a 5-point gap over SKC, and a lot of that has to do with them winning 1-0 against Austin FC, and SKC, of course, drawing that game against the Quakes. And speaking of which, you know, that game, yeah, that was an improbable win. Like, the fact that the Sounders literally just put a bunch of kids in that game, and almost like they were punting that game away, and we're just kind of focusing on this one, and the fact that they still got a win in that one, just to show you that this Sounders team, no matter how depleted that they are, and they could literally feel a U21 team, or even maybe a Tacoma Defiance kind of team, and they still will find a way to get all 3 points against an MLS team. And I'm pretty sure SKC would know that too, because, you know, SKC in the last game, they did drew 1-1 against the San Jose Earthquakes at home. And in terms of the last 5 games between both of these teams, well, for the Sounders, as I mentioned, they come off of a remarkable 1-0 win against Austin FC. They did have their unbeaten run, unfortunately came to an end against Minnesota on the road, as they lost 1-0 in that one. But before that, they were able to win 2-0 against the Houston Dynamo to pretty much break the record for the longest unbeaten run to start the season. Then it was a 1-1 draw between them and Colorado, and then a 2-2 draw between them and Vancouver at home. For SKC, they drew 1-1 against the San Jose Earthquakes, as I mentioned. Before that, they did win 2-0 on the road against the Galaxy, won 2-1 at home against LAFC, won 3-1 against the Colorado Rapids, before losing on the road against the Portland Timbers 2-1 in this game. And, you know, I will also say that coming into this match, there's no doubt that, you know, it's kind of hard to tell who is going to be the favorites in this one, because, as I said, both of these teams are going to be missing some of their key players. I'm guessing maybe the Sounders are going to be the favorites, because they're playing at home, and even as banged up as they are, you know, as I mentioned, it doesn't matter what kind of team that this Sounders team are put. Like, they can put their C team and still able to get all 3 points. So, yeah, I think they definitely have the better shot in terms of winning this one. But for SKC, they can get a win in this one. You know, I know it will probably a win against kind of a B team that the Sounders are going to put, but this can maybe send a message that, you know, maybe they could be the one to really knock off the Seattle Sounders. And that, I know a lot of people have already said the Sounders are going to be the one that most likely is going to come out the Western Conference and once again represent the Western Conference in MLS Cup this year. But, you know, if there is one team that maybe can potentially stop them, it could be SKC coming into this game, and it's going to be interesting to see how they will do. And also, I can maybe even say that this could potentially be a preview of the Western Conference final later this year. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of all 5 of these games. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these 5 games, and let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 5 of these games. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you guys next time.